Welcome back to the Joe Mac podcast. I have a very special guest today. His name's Micheal Rubio. He served 17 years in the United States Marine Corps. We served together on the same unit for a couple years. Mike, thank you for being with me.
Yeah, no problem, man. The pleasure's all mine. It's great.
Yeah, you were able to join us on the group call on Saturday, which was fantastic. I mean, we all enjoyed having you. Can't wait to have you again on that. And we kind of scratched the surface a little bit on your history, essentially. And I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit more. So you had no real plans to join the military.
No, it's just like there's probably a lot of guys out there that just don't really know where their, life was going to take them, and I, college football or college sports or college in general, it sounded like a great idea, but I had no idea what was going to be after that. And so the military was like a great way to just give me an extra 4 years to figure that out. Because I thought in my mind, like, yeah, I could do the military for 4 years and then go do something else. And then I just ended up falling in love with the military. So I stuck around.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. What made you fall in love with it, and what does that mean?
Oh, man, it's, the environment, the lifestyle, but the dudes, man, the guys that you work with on a day-to-day, essentially you befriend Marines all the way through. At boot camp, you got a set of friends. MCT, you get a set of friends. At MOS school, you get a set of friends. And I might not have seen guys for 20 years that I went to boot camp with, but if I saw them right now, I'd want to buy them a beer or go conversate with them to see how they're doing, because the experiences of going through boot camp together is just like going through a deployment together or going through, anything together. And so we can reminisce on those experiences. And you're broken down in boot camp, like you're broken down to nothing. So it's almost like you're reestablishing your whole self. But after getting into the fleet and you start working and doing your job, those friendships just grow and flourish. And it was probably about 2 years or 2.5 years in, and I was like, man, I could do this. I could do this for a while. It's not too bad.
Okay. Thank you for that. So about 2 years in, you pretty much knew, hey, I might be sticking around for a while.
I thought this is the easiest job I've ever had in my life. I like the guys that I'm working with. The job is cool because it kept us moving, doing HSTs and port ops, beach ops, whatever it was like an active job. It wasn't just sitting behind the computer all day. It wasn't very technical. Like, it didn't take a lot of expertise to get the job done. It was just more about being able to work with people, like having people skills got the job done on a day-to-day. And so that was cool. I was like, shoot, I'm a people person. I can make this work.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And yeah, you in the last episode, you mentioned that people skills is kind of what you developed through coming from a big family, a lot of cousins, things like that.
Yeah. 38 first cousins, maybe 37. It's 37 or 38. That's a lot of first cousins, man. And, we are all kind of similar. If you take the majority of us guys, you put us all in a room, we're all the same guy. Egotistic, confident, loud, obnoxious, but loyal and we're not dummies. We're not a bunch of dummies, we get along real well, but I think coming up, fighting each other and competing against each other, we all challenged each other to grow, and you didn't want to be left behind. So, at an early age, by the time I was a teenager, the standard was set to be a Rubio. Everybody wanted to be the best Rubio, right? Competing against each other. Like, all wanted to be like Grandpa. So.
Gotcha. And this was all in Texas?
Yeah, that's all in Central Texas, between Austin and Houston. Man, I don't know if it was the sports, coming up in athletics in Texas is a big deal, kind of like a lot of the other southern states. And, you just want to be a winner, man. You're just trying to win. That's win at all costs. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but as a young guy, it keeps you focused and keeps you out of trouble by having a goal to attain. But no, we, I swear, man, all my cousins there, it's basically was like growing up with a bunch of Marines. They all, they're all a bunch of Marines, man. And And some of them still are. I got a couple of cousins that are one stationed in Pendleton and one stationed in San Diego right now. Two of my first cousins, they're both Marines.
Very good, very good. So sounds like now. So at what point? How far were you into college when you decided that, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and join the Marines?
No, see, that was misunderstood, man. I was my coaches were helping me put packages together to like try to build some kind of scholarship for college athletics because my coaches wanted me to play college football or run track or something like that. And so they were helping me. And when I decided to join the Marine Corps, this was still my senior year. And I was like, hey, man, I'm done. I'm going to the Marine Corps. And my coaches were pissed. They were like, dude, you're supposed to go to college, you're supposed to go play college sports. And I was like, nah, man, I'm good,
Wow.
So I never went to college. I opted just to go to the military out of high school. And I'm telling you, some of the grown-ups that I was around that I respected, I call them mom, my kids call these women grandma, and they're not the grandma. They're just my friend's mom, my friend's dad or whatever. And man, they were mad at me because they didn't want me to go to the military either. They, Afghanistan was kicking off, and they didn't want me to go to war and get shot or whatever. But hell, I think at the end of the day, it was the best for me.
Gotcha. Did you have any family history of anybody else in the military prior to you?
Yeah, my dad did one enlistment, like late 70s, early 80s, one enlistment in the Marine Corps. That was it. He was a motor T guy. I don't think he did anything. There was really no wars or no conflicts going on back then. Just Joe Motor T guy, did an enlistment, was kind of a hippie. I think he smoked a lot of weed, cared more about that than being in the Marine Corps. So he got out, he started his own painting business and was a painter his whole life. So my dad was a Marine, then he was a painter. And that's what he did. And so growing up, I used to paint with him. That was a job I had. Did like a lot of residential, industrial painting type stuff. And he never, ever, I can't ever remember one time of him talking about like, hey, son, you should join the military. Never did he have that. And so when I caught my buddy in the library that day and I decided to go to, sign into the DEP program and go to MEPS, I called my dad and said, hey, Dad, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. And like he broke down. I don't know if he was crying because he was on the phone, but you could tell he was emotional in our conversation in a proud way. Maybe he didn't want me to go, maybe he did, but like I said, he never gave me any kind of inclination that he wanted me to join the Marine Corps. And it just happened to be I did. I wasn't trying to follow in his footsteps or nothing. So
Gotcha.
After I told him, then he started telling me a little bit about the Marine Corps. And he would tell me like, man, I wish I would have stayed in. So if you're going to do this, I'm not telling you to stay in, but it's an idea because I think at that point in high school, I was 18. My dad would have been 39-ish or right at 40. And so he's like, man, I would have just be retired. In his mind, he would just be retiring at that moment. If he would have stayed in and did 20 years or 30 years or whatever. And I remember him taking me to he took me to MCT. You get boot leave and then you go to MCT. And he was like, God damn it, man, I'd be retiring right now, So whatever.
Thank you for sharing that. So essentially, just to feed that back to you, he did one enlistment in the late 70s. He was motor T operator. You said he never expected you to join or never tried to convince you to join, but prior, during those years that you guys were painting together, did he ever share any stories with you or anything like that?
Yeah, all the silliness. Like I said, it never was in detail. It was more about like the unique experiences he might have had with his friends, or man, I can't even remember very many. It just wasn't something that he talked about a lot. Man, we have his old boot camp. I think I have it, an old his boot camp yearbook. So I don't know if you got a boot camp yearbook. I may or may not have got one. I can't really remember, but I have a yearbook from when he went to boot camp, and it's just his platoons or whatnot and some pictures. And he showed it to me one time, and he was like, "Oh, look, his picture's in there." One time, I'm like, "You look like a goddamn recruit. You look like everybody else." You know, like, I can't tell the difference. But no, man, those stories. Me and my dad were real close growing up, and you know, drinking at an early age. I never drank with any of my friends except for my dad and my grandpa growing up, and that's from the time I was like young. Never through high school did I drink with anybody except for my dad or my grandpa. And so even though we spent so much time together, the military wasn't a conversation we were having. You know, it just wasn't in sports. So, you know, we talked about whatever baseball season, basketball season, football season. That's what we were talking about.
Gotcha. Wow. So thank you for that. Got it. So when you finally decided to join, he started sharing some more with you. He started telling you, "Hey, look, I kind of wish I stayed in because of the retirement." Essentially, is that kind of what I'm understanding?
Yeah, that actually, that's probably hits the nail on the head. You know, 20 years goes by real fast. And if you can stick it out for 20 years, man, and get that retirement, it could benefit you financially or just like comfort. Um, right now, I'm in a position to where I can choose to work or not work for the rest of my life. I do not have to work ever again, and that's a very relieving feeling. You know, I'm only 37 years old, man, and I never have to work again. Um, so, and Joey, like you can sit there, Joey, like and you know, like 5 years from now, you know, you're only a few years behind me, and just think never having to work again. Your dad would probably say the same thing. I don't know if does your dad work right now?
He is retired.
Yeah,
So
but he
he's
probably
done.
could have chose not to work anymore when he retired from the military, right? But he
Probably.
did, yeah, because I mean, you're bored. You still got plenty of like energy in you. What I'm lucky is that my wife retired from the Marine Corps also, so we got a few paychecks coming in, which is all right.
It's good, man. Glad to hear
Uh,
that. Now, and you retired a couple of years ago. Before we get into that, I say we keep it chronological because this is kind of interesting to me. Yeah, let's talk about boot camp. I mean, what were your expectations going in, and then what were your main takeaways from that experience?
uh, so my dad did tell me about boot camp. He said it's all a game. My dad told me, hey, boot camp's a game. Just go with it, right? So I was going in there with little to no expectation, but always understanding that it's just a game. Like you just got to get through, just survive boot camp and you'll be fine. And so I didn't know how to drill. I didn't know how to march. I didn't know how to do anything. So I just took it all in and learned what they were teaching me. And I was like, okay, I don't know shit. But at the same time, I did not like playing those games. Bro, my rack was tight. Why are you undoing my rack? My rack was super tight, you know? All my stuff was done exactly the way you asked me to do it, and you're still fucking me up. Like, I don't deserve to get fucked up. Uh, so that was the friction that I had in boot camp was based off of like, why am I getting punished for somebody else sucking, you know? And you learn that's just the way it is, man. You got to get everybody on the same level, and it sucks to say, but the same level is really the weakest link. So you're only as strong as your weakest link, and that's where everybody's at. So being a thinker, I try to game the game as best I could. And what I did was I didn't like playing the get dressed, undressed games in the morning in boot camp. So I hooked up with the scribe, and I was friends with the scribe, and I said, bro, give me the last fire watch every night. And one thing I love is breakfast. Breakfast is my favorite meal. It's always been my favorite meal. I've never skipped out on breakfast my whole life. So I would get last fire watch every night. So I took fire watch every night, last fire watch. So guess what? When everybody was waking up in the morning, I was just standing there already dressed, not playing those games, right? So I'm just standing at the position of attention. Boom, boom. Okay, early child, late child. I always got to eat breakfast solo, like because I was early child, late child. I was never eating breakfast with the platoon. sit down and eat my breakfast, and it was gravy. That was a good experience because I learned how to manipulate my situation, right? On a negative side, I did not like the puppets. The squad leaders and the guide were puppets, right? All they do is do whatever the drill instructors tell them. So I had a lot of run-ins with the squad leaders because I probably should have been a squad leader. I was a 300 PFTer, and I was motivated and all that. But it was like first weekend or second weekend, and one of the squad leaders was I was mopping the floor or something, and so he bust in like the little man. You're East Coast, you're a Paris Island guy, right? Yeah, so I was West Coast, but it's whatever the squad bays look like. The heads is like a hallway, like a walkway, and I was mopping, and he comes in yelling like clean faster or better, and he kicks the water bucket, the mop bucket over, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? He said, pick that up, and I was like, fuck no. I can't remember the exact words, but this dude came in and kicked the water bucket over. He's a goddamn recruit just like I am, and he kicked that water bucket over. I was like, man, I'm not picking that shit up. You pick it up. And he's like, you'll do what you said. I said, I'll whoop your goddamn ass right now. And so then the other squad leaders came and they tried to like gang up on me, and I wasn't backing down. I was like, fuck y'all, man. And the drill instructor pulled me in, and I think it was my senior that actually pulled me in, and he was like, shit, what'd he say? Like, why are you disobeying? And I'm like, I'm not playing these fucking stupid games, man. I was doing what I was supposed to do, yada, yada, yada. And he said, hey, man, you got to get along. And I was like, this is just a fucking game. He's like, you got to get along. I was like, okay, I'll get along. But then I had another confrontation with another squad leader that I was going to beat his ass. And so 3 weeks in, I knew that I was never going to be a squad leader. But our guide was solid, though, man. Our guide was top notch. So there's nobody was taking his spot. He was like a 27-year-old fucking stud, man. And so I was just a motivator in the platoon, man. Anytime they asked for a volunteer, I was the first one up. And that's a double-edged sword, man. They ask for a volunteer, you might get smoked, or you might get early child, late child. So, bro, I'm telling you, if I volunteered 100 times, half the time I was volunteering to get smoked, and the other half I was volunteering for early child, late child, because I knew early child, late child was a possibility. So I would take that smoking all day long. Those are some funny stories I have that I appreciated about the boot camp situation.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So essentially, you kind of viewed the squad leaders as like puppets, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. But they had to be. They had a job to do. Just like the drill instructors have a job to do. And so if they can get somebody to do that job for them, it only helps them in their own way. There's a method to the madness. I think it's necessary. It's a necessary evil to get those guys to act that way. It's all for the greater good. So no harm, no foul, man. I don't hold no grudges against nobody. It is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. And then, so yeah, I mean, it sounds like your dad told you it's all a game, and then you found out, well, hey, look, I don't know if I like playing these games too much, essentially.
You were there. I mean, you know what games I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Man, it was like if my rack was tight and then we go mess up the whole fucking squad bay, like that just sucked, man.
Yeah. We were talking about this on another episode. It's kind of like controlled chaos, and they kind of figure out how to manage everybody from the standpoint of everybody's strengths and weaknesses. And the way they find that out is kind of put maximum stress on that individual over an amount of time. You're going to find out easily, who's how to control everybody from that standpoint, essentially. And it sounds like, they get, everybody gets got, essentially.
Yeah, you can't. There's no escape there, man. There's no escape.
Yeah.
And so it's tolerable because once you start to see what's going on, nobody's getting favoritism or nothing like that, man. Staying in and talking to drill instructors through the years, man. I got a lot of friends that were drill instructors and former past and present, man, and they all say the same thing. They don't remember the recruits, man. They're trying to survive too. I mean, because they're upheld to a high standard, and they're trying to meet their standard as well, man. It's impossible to win in that scenario.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Thank you for that. So yeah, good stuff. Appreciate that. And so then after that was obviously MCT. Anything else on that process? You still keep in touch with some guys from that?
No, but I bet
Not really.
I bet I can name half the platoon. I don't know why, man. I don't forget names, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, dude, yeah, there were some memorable moments. There was a handful of guys that I ran into after boot camp. You know, after 3 or 4 years, a couple guys reenlisted, and a couple guys just moved away. But one dude in particular, West. I'll try to keep this quick. West devised a plan to go steal candy out of the dumpster because you know how you had to take the candy out of your MREs and go throw it away. And so they were on fire watch. They stole the candy, and Wes hooked me up with candy too, right? So I woke up one morning, had candy up underneath my damn pillow. Man, as soon as I woke up, I ate the whole thing of peanut M&Ms. Boom, you know, got rid of the trash or whatever. Well, they got caught, and he didn't rat me out. So Wes was my boy in boot camp, right? And Wes is like a black dude from Mississippi. Just kind of reminds me of the dudes that I grew up with around Texas playing sports. So he looked like an athlete, talked like an athlete. And later on, after a couple years in the Marine Corps, I was probably like a corporal or sergeant, and we hooked back up, and we were basketball buddies out in Camp Lejeune and Camp Johnson and whatnot. We used to hook up and play basketball together. So it was pretty cool meeting him after boot camp, you know, and that was the only person I probably got to really hang out with after boot camp, you know, maybe MCT or MOS school, but that was it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
boot camp was cool, man. It was one of those things that was memorable. You know, if I had to go back and do it again, man, I wouldn't. I never want to do that again. Never.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. So that being said, you got through that, you earned the title, and then you had 10 days of boot leave and then MCT. What was going through your mind during those 10 days?
10 days, shoot, man. They put out an order when I was graduating boot camp that anybody that requests recruiter's assistance automatically rates it. It was something to do with maybe like numbers game, and OIF the 9/11 had just happened, so we're only a couple months after 9/11, and so if you requested recruiter's assistance, it was automatically granted. So I requested it through my recruiter, and my recruiter's like, "Yeah, bro, you're good." So I came in like a couple days, and then he was like, "Oh no, man, you're not good." And I'm like, "Man, I just been here for a couple days. You said I was good." And then I wasn't good, so it kind of cut into my 10 days. So then I had to, you know, hop tail over to, because I was in Austin, you know, Austin, Texas. So then I had to hop foot over to damn MCT, kind of on short notice. Whatever, man, no big deal. I get to MCT day one. Rubio, here, he said something. I forgot what the question was, and my response was, "This recruit." Day one at MCT, because you know they ingrain that into you, man. Like they hit you with calling yourself this recruit. So I called
Yeah.
myself this the very first formation of MCT. Um, you know, it wasn't that bad. This was January 2nd, 2002. So New Year's, you know, New Year's Eve, me and my dad spent driving from Houston down to San Diego. You know, we were just road tripping it. And I mean, hell, to be honest with you, my dad was going through some hard times. So I was going to MCT, and I was like, "Dad, I don't need no money." I think I had like $600 in my bank account, and I emptied my bank account and just gave it to my dad so he can, you know, survive, because he was broke, man. He didn't really have a lot going for him. And I was like, "I'm good," you know, and went to MCT, and I was good. MOS was good. But yeah, so I get to MCT, and the holidays, you know, in January, you got the New Year's holiday, and then you go right into MLK in January, whatever
Yeah.
one is MLK. And so our MCT was supposed to be 17 days long or something like that. And I think when you went through, it's probably like 21 days long or 24. But that stuff fluctuates from year to year. It seems like. Well, we got ours cut short. So what we did is we got there January 2nd. We were graduated before the MLK holiday. I think we were only there 12 days or 13 days total. We never came back. We go to MCT, you go to the field, you come back for a haircut and a shower, you go back out there. Oh, no, man. We stayed in the field the whole time. We came back like 11 days later, graduated the next day. Hey, see you guys later. I mean, it was short and sweet, and it was cool. We got it done.
Gotcha.
But it was, in California, in the wintertime, it's still nice in the day. I mean, you still hit 60 degrees or 70 degrees during the daytime. But in the mountains over there in MCT at night, it'll drop down into the 30s. So the first event that you do when you get to MCT is the grenade. That's like one of the first things that we did. And I was like one of the guys that got picked to go pick up the grenades and then go sleep on the grenades the night before the grenade range. And while everybody else humps to the little bivouacs or whatever, they sleep and then wake up the next morning and come throw grenades. Well, we went to sleep. It was like 65 degrees outside. And we woke up in the morning with ice on us. Like, it was like, what the fuck, man? What am I getting into out here? But no, MCT was super skate, man. No issues. I knew how to ration out my child. I knew how to stay awake in classes so I didn't get fucking yelled at. No problem, man. I had no issues out there. My feet hurt, that's all.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So, yeah, you and your dad tripped it out. You said you emptied your bank account for him because he was kind of going through some hard times.
Yeah, work was slow.
Work was slow, okay. And I'm sure he appreciated that.
Yeah, for sure. Me and my dad were best friends, man, so.
Very good. And then now up to this point, real quick, I mean, boot camp, MCT, obviously two very different types of environments, essentially. Well, maybe not environment, but like formality, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. The missions, like the goal there, two different things. MCT was super laid back. Just don't do anything outside the lines. And outside the lines was don't do anything to get you in trouble, like sneaking off, trying to. I don't know. We didn't have girls like y'all did. I heard that over there on the East Coast, they'd be sneaking off trying to hook up with some chick. Well, we're a bunch of dudes, so nobody was sneaking off trying to hook up with anybody. We're in the mountains. There ain't nowhere to go. I can't even think of dudes would get in trouble for not waking up for fire watch and fighting the other dude.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Fights was probably the worst thing.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So, and then, Fowler was telling us a story in MCT during the night nav. Him and his buddy, they get done with all their checkpoints. They come back there waiting for everybody. This guy comes up with a stick sticking out of his eyeball. He done ran into a tree limb. So they, they got him rushed off to the hospital. Fowler was saying that was his first kind of experience of a traumatic injury. Had you ever seen anybody up to that point with any traumatic injuries like that?
No, I was still just a standard issue. 4 life-saving steps, all the stuff that you learn in boot camp. Stop the bleeding, start the breathing, treat the wound, protect from shock. Never forget it, right? Ingrained. But standard issue is just you go through all your medical classes and you learn the acronyms and whatnot. And but no casualties yet. None in boot camp, none in MCT. Man, I'm telling you, the worst thing that we had in MCT was some bloody knuckles or bloodied up eyes because we had some dudes getting fights and that was it. But that's hell. You see that stuff back home, anyways. It's nothing bad. Nobody had to go to the hospital. So.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So then next stop is the schoolhouse. Camp Johnson, was that your first time to the East Coast?
Yeah, that was my first time to the East Coast. Good old Camp Johnson.
And that was your first duty station was Lejeune, right? No,
I went to
Okinawa. That's right. That's right. Okay, so let's take us through the schoolhouse experience. How was that going to Camp Johnson? How was going to Camp Johnson #1? What were your initial thoughts on that place? And then through the school evolution. Can you take us through that?
Oh, absolutely. So you get to Camp Johnson, and this is like the first time you're really free. Like now you're free, you can do whatever you want, but you don't know that. You don't know that you're able just to go out to the, like, hey, I want to go to Walmart. All right. You don't have to ask permission to go to Walmart. You just go. But people don't understand that because you've been so structured and, man, you're broken down. Like you're a kid again. You have to ask permission to do everything. So we get there. I spent 4 months informing because I guess classes were backed up or whatever. So my time informing was about 6 weeks of that was spent at Camp Guard. And Camp Guard, I was the front gate. I guarded the front gate. And so you build relationships, and there was some girls there, and I built a relationship with the girl while I was in Camp Guard. And we were friends. And then when we actually picked up class, we actually started dating. We were boyfriend and girlfriend, right? And then life was easy. I didn't care, man. I was having sex, like nothing else mattered. When you're in MOS school, and there's 50 dudes, and there's only 2 girls or whatever, and you're one of the dudes having sex, then you feel like you're ahead of the game. So, but it was, I mean, we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and we had plans to stay together, and we even went to Okinawa together. But so, anyways, back to Camp Guard. Some cool experiences about Camp Guard. One of my instructors at Camp Guard, they're all security forces guys, right? So I think they're just random as MOSs, but they're security forces now, right? They got a badge, and you were just some Motor T guy, whatever, man. You weren't. They try to act like they were badass dudes. They weren't even MPs. They weren't fucking badass dudes, I promise you. But they sure did act like it to us privates and PFCs. So, I'll tell you, I had my first military spades experience when I was in Camp Guard. I already knew how to play spades. Spades was one of the first card games I learned how to play when I was like in first grade, I think. And so one of the instructors came out and said, who knows how to play spades? A few of us raised our hand, and they didn't pick me because I was a white guy. And so they picked this other guy as a black guy, and I forgot, his name was like Cotton or something like that. Black dude named Cotton, go figure. So they picked him because he was a black guy. Whatever. I was okay. I didn't take too much offense to that, but I made it known that I know how to play spades. And so after that dude showed that he did not know how to play spades, I finally got my turn like maybe a day or two later, and I went in there and just busted their ass at spades. I don't care what the rules are, I busted their ass. It was a sergeant and a staff sergeant. They thought they were hot shit. And me and some other dude from Camp Guard, I just tore their asses up. I'm talking shit the whole time. I did not care. I was like, don't ever disrespect me. I've been playing spades since before you were born, son. And these dudes are probably 5 years older than me now, right? But I was like, bro, I've been playing spades since I was a kid. This is one of the first games I learned how to play. And so I had a really fun spades time after that in Camp Guard. I was either on my duty or I was watching Dragon Ball Z and playing spades. So, because the instructors, and I watched Dragon Ball Z a little bit when I was in high school, but they had that on 24/7 at Camp Guard. And so, I've watched all the Dragon Ball Z episodes. So Camp Guard was cool, man. It was real skate. Once you get in with the instructors, man, they treat you special. They give you more freedoms. Then, like I said, that lasted for like a couple months. Went back to foreman just for like a week or two just to pick up class. Once you pick up class, it's start all over again. You got to learn the instructors. You got to learn how to game the game. And I think by this time, I realized the Marine Corps is all about managing who's in charge of you. If you can understand the people that are in charge of you, then you can manipulate that situation in your favor. But you can't just go against the grain and think that you're going to actually have success or happiness. No, man, you play the game, do whatever they're asking you. So I knew there was a couple instructors that I had to steer clear of, and a couple of them that I can bond to or get on their hips. And if you can make friends with the guys that you're in charge of, man, life is easy. And I did that, man. I don't know if you ever knew him, but Garber, Staff Sergeant Garber was one. Staff Sergeant Powell was one. Guys that were easily on my level, as in like we were athletic types and we were sports guys, And then you get the other guy that they're like motorcycle guys, and I wasn't a motorcycle guy, so I didn't relate to that guy. So I just steered clear of the dudes that I didn't relate to, and I had a pretty easy time in MOS school too, man. I wasn't nothing special, but I didn't hate my time. I wasn't getting fucked with like some of the other dudes were. So field day, man. Field day inspections at the schoolhouse, those were rough. Guys would come in with the damn white glove and a coat hanger, expecting you to clean every little crevice of your room. And you're like, for what, man? My room's fine. Like, leave my room alone.
Right. Right. It's pretty good recall. Thank you for that. So, I mean, essentially you had 4 months is a very long time for camp guard, but it sounds like you made the most of it. I mean, you formed a relationship that continued on to Okinawa, your first duty station. You learned how to play spades with higher ranking guys and learned how to get along with them. And then like you said, it was kind of once you got picked up, you kind of had to relearn brand new people. But it sounds like you said at that point you figured out it's all about managing who's in charge of you.
Yeah, isn't that what we do in life? You got to be Semper Gumby. If you're stuck in your ways, man, it's going to be hard for you to get along with certain people. The more flexible you are, I think the easier it is to adapt to situations. And that's what the military is, man, just working with people, hirers and lowers. You got to get the younger guys to work for you, and you got to get the higher ups to listen to you, or at least respect you enough to let you do what you're supposed to do.
Got it. Thank you for that. So by this point, because you had actually become a schoolhouse instructor further down the road.
Yeah.
At that point, did you ever think that you'd be a schoolhouse instructor?
Heck no, man. I just wanted to live overseas. I wanted to deploy. That's it, man. I wanted to go. I wanted to do my job, whatever that was. And I knew it wasn't going to be sitting back in the rear. So at that point, I knew guys were deploying to Afghanistan. And so I thought I was going to go to Afghanistan. Well, a week before graduation or something, you get your orders at the schoolhouse. So I don't know if you remember this. You're sitting in there and you ask where you want to go, but then they come back with the orders. And I only know this as an instructor. All it is a master list. It's a roster, and it says, hey, these guys are going East Coast, West Coast, Okinawa. And that's really what you get out of the schoolhouse. East, West, and Okinawa, the monitor has, hey, I need split it in thirds, or sometimes split it in half, or sometimes the whole class needs to go to the East Coast or the West Coast. And the monitor dictates that. Now we had one kid in our class that had guaranteed East Coast in his contract. So that was just something that he knew the game, and he got that guaranteed East Coast in his contract. And everybody else got told that they were going to Okinawa. So the entire class had to go to Okinawa. There was some disappointment, man. Some of them kids were mad. And I was like, Japan, I was like, okay, I wanted to go to Cali. I wanted to go to California. And so we all went to Okinawa, and everybody was kind of like a little irritated at that at first. But, man, by the time we got there, man, I can name all those guys from the schoolhouse, and they're still my friends on Facebook, and we conversate every now and then. And I don't think they had a bad time. Hell, one of the guys and girls there, they hooked up in MOS school. They're still married right now. They only did one. Both of them only did one enlistment and then got out. But they're married and happy and living in Tennessee or something like that.
No kidding. And then how long did you spend in Okinawa from that point?
So the tour was only supposed to be 1 year. But during my 1 year there, which was about April 2002 or April or May 2002. Oh, no, that's when I was graduating schoolhouse. Damn, I think I got to Okinawa in June of 2002. And then I was supposed to, do 1 year till June 2003. Well, guess what happened in early 2003? OIF kicked off, right? When OIF kicked off, they did a stop loss, and I didn't leave Okinawa until August. So I did about a year and a few months in Okinawa but it was cool. I did 2 pumps on the MEU. The MEU is like a 6-month deployment over there. So imagine our MEU was essentially a year and a half, because you do 6 months of workups. I'm sorry, 6 months of individual training, 6 months of unit training, like where you attached to the MEU, and then you do a 6-month deployment. So it's a year and a half on the East Coast or West Coast, but in Okinawa they condense all that, and it's a 6-month gig. So for 6 months I was on the MEU. At the end of that 6 months, you're supposed to cycle back to your parent command, but I decided to just stay there and do another 6 months. So we did a whole nother cycle.
Gotcha.
That was a good time, man. We worked. You think that we were in shape when we were deployed, like us and Chavez and Grignon, those guys? Man, we were weak compared to the platoon that I had in Okinawa. I want to say we had like a 293 PFT average for 26 dudes. 293 was the average, man. There was about 8 of us with 300 PFTs. Everybody could do 20 pull-ups. So, man, there's nothing like it. Master Gunnery Sergeant Brian Smith is a red patcher, or was a 0491 right now. He was my corporal back then, and he'll tell you, man, I've never seen a platoon that in shape ever in my career. Not even close, man. Everybody, top to bottom, was super physically fit.
It's pretty impressive, sounds like. I mean, that's yeah, that sounds so it sounds like you took a page out of that book. Like, hey, look, this is this is how it should be, kind of.
That doesn't need to be that way to gain success. But that is an avenue to gain success, is by some similarities in the guys that you work with. If everybody likes Fortnite and everybody has to talk, everybody talks about Fortnite, you're going to have a pretty good group of guys. But if everybody's into sports, you have a good group of guys. If everybody's into the same shit, like, you're going to have a good group of guys. And so we had a bunch of athletes that were competitive as all hell. And so everybody pushed each other to be better, and we did a lot of grappling and a lot of lifting weights.
Gotcha. And you hit Libo ports during that time as well?
Yeah, we did a humanitarian assistance in East Timor, which is like Australia, a little bit north of Australia. Hong Kong. I didn't go to Hong Kong. Those guys floated to Hong Kong, and I was like RBE then. But Korea, Guam and Korea, Hong Kong, East Timor, mainland Japan. So those are just, you just kind of travel around that area. Some of the other cycles would go to like Singapore or Thailand, and it just wasn't our time. So.
What was your takeaways from those Libo ports? I mean,
it was cool. It was unique. It wasn't America. So we were definitely restricted. Like, we didn't have overnight liberty or nothing like that. I wasn't a drinker. I didn't drink at all. I wasn't old enough to drink, but I didn't even care. Like, I wasn't looking to go have alcohol. I was just looking to take in the sights. So I would do like the touristy stuff that they allowed us to do, MWR tours, and go sightseeing, amusement park, or whatever it might be. So I just took advantage of and did the regular old stuff. I don't feel like I missed out on anything, but looking back, if I was a drinker, bro, we'd have just partied our ass off. We'd have been partying our asses off, man. Yeah. So if you were a drinker and you like to, there was that was available to you also, but it just wasn't my thing.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So 2 pumps on the MEU. This is when OIF was kicking off in 2003. They kept you there for a little bit longer than you had anticipated, and then you got sent to Lejeune.
Yeah. So being a red patcher, you get sent to LS company. So you're gonna either go East Coast, West Coast, or Okinawa. And I got orders to Camp Lejeune but I was trying to go to Camp Pendleton, and the monitor just wouldn't budge. He's like, no, we got too many guys. And then you get, like, I'm like Lance Corporal asking for my orders to get changed. Man, he don't care. He's just like, whatever, you're going to the East Coast. And I'm like, bro, I want to go to the West Coast. He's like, nah, you're going to the East Coast. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. So I end up at the East Coast, and that's fine. You know, LS Company was like a Bravo Company. I'm at Bravo Company for a week or two, and then we're like, hey, the 24th MEU is, I said, not recruiting, but they're gearing up to go. And so what they did at that time, and this might have been, they were still doing it when you were there, the way that you got on the MEU. You get that one staff NCO, and the company says, hey man, this is your float, pick your guys. You know, here's the 40 guys that are available to go, pick your 26 guys to go. Well, hell, you might only have 26 guys that are available to go, you know? But if you had 40 or 50 guys to pick from, you're going to pick the best guys, not the guys that are in trouble, not the guys that are fat. So you pick the best of the best to go onto the MEU. And so this was a good thing about being able to do that, is when you took your guys and you went on the MEU, you knew you weren't going to have any discipline problems because you were picking the best guys available. So we had a pretty stud crew of dudes. Half of them came from BTO and half of them came from Bravo Company. And that's like the Perkins and Weeks and Anderson and Catabayo and McNeil. So all those guys. And we had Sean Morris, Jason Jones, me, Jason Wrights, Egbers, Humphrey, Bennett, Sump. You know, we had all this group of dudes. I could probably name all 26, I bet. And it was a bunch of stud ass dudes that went on to the MEU, and that was the cycle before you guys.
Gotcha. So basically, you were there just a week or two, very short time in LS Company.
Yeah, I got there in August. And in August we went to go be MSSG 24. You know, LS Det, MSSG 24. So August. It was definitely only a couple weeks, and I was already there.
So what was that experience like going into the MEU? What were your expectations? Because you had been on the MEU in Okinawa, so you're thinking, okay, I got kind of an idea what to expect. What did you find out?
That it's not the same, man. Listen, I don't care. A MEU is not a MEU unless it's the same fucking, like the 24th MEU in Camp Lejeune. Yeah, doing back to back, it was the same thing. But going from Okinawa to Camp Lejeune, everything is different, man. Everything is different. The way that you train, the training that you're able to do, the way you do HSTs. You know, and HSTs they're simple, man. You could probably go run an HST right now, I'm sure, but not in Pendleton if you've never done it in Pendleton. You know, if you've never done it in Okinawa, it's just different. So I thought I knew exactly what to expect, and it was just a world difference. But you learn quick, man. You get thrown in there, and you just start doing stuff. I was me, Sean Morris, and Jason Jones all picked up corporal September 1st. So we were the only 3 corporals. So maybe, Jason Wrights. Yeah, me, Wrights, Morris, and Jones. So 4 of us picked up corporal that first month. And so we were the squad leaders, man. We were the ones running PT. We were the ones running everything because there was only 4 corporals. And you know what that's like. So if you're top heavy, it's hard to get shit done. But when you have just a bunch of Lance Corporals, fuck, you just get the shit done. It's easy. Lance Corporals, go do it. So I say that, but by the end of the deployment, everybody was a corporal. I mean, just like on our deployment, you know, I think we started with 2 sergeants, me and Stevens, but guess what? We ended with like 6 of them or something like that. So
Right.
it is what, and everybody was a corporal, but hell, I don't know, maybe you were the young one, weren't you? Like you were you were one of the younger ones. And so I think Fleisner, if you remember Fleisner, he was one of the young guys, so he wasn't a corporal. Smith might not have been a corporal yet, so whatever.
I got promoted on ship while we were
Coming back.
Yeah. With I can't remember the month. It was sometime during that deployment.
Yeah, that doesn't matter, because after a month or two and you do an exercise, everybody knows their role,
Yeah.
and there's not much getting out of your role. Uh, but hey, our Mew was different though, man. We did all those workups on the 24th Mew, and so we thought we were gonna ship over and hit some libo ports and do whatever. Oh no, Ron John wanted to go fight. Ron John wanted to be in the war. Colonel Johnson. Uh, he wanted to go fight, so he was taking his Mew, and we flew over, and we spent 9 months in Iraq fighting. And if it was up to him, we'd probably all still be there right now. So,
Wow. Do you think it was up to him?
no, there's politics involved in that stuff. I have no idea, man. I've never sat down and had broken bread with them or shared a beer. I just assume to me, the front that he put on was, I'm ready to go fight. Let's go. And so if there was anything other agenda hidden behind that, he kept it to himself, because in all of our eyes, and I guarantee everybody that was on the cycle before you, they would all say, Ron John was a badass because he was ready to go fight, and he held his bearing and his persona to that standard, to like, hey, I'm here to fight. We're kicking ass, and that's what we're doing. And he just seemed like a leader of Marines, Colonel goddamn Johnson. So
Yeah.
that's your dad's boy, I'm pretty sure. I thought they were
100%.
oh, okay, yeah. See, I thought there was.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because you missed. Yeah. To catch you up, on one of the group calls, yeah, we were going over that. He played a role. He actually, well, okay. So when I was a kid, I used to cut his grass and swim in his pool. Him and my dad were good friends. They had some trainings together. They were stationed on Lejeune together in the early '90s. If I'm not mistaken, they might have been on the Mew together. I'd have to check on that. But
MOS?
who's that?
Your dad?
My father was 20 years infantry officer. So
they're both infantry guys.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And then so it was me, Brady, and Fowler coming from the schoolhouse to LS Company. Once we arrived, Chavez, Grignon, and Estrada, they were already on the Mew. When we arrived, Hurricane Katrina kicked off, and then the three of us chopped directly to the Mew at that point. I think Ron had a part in getting us on the Mew. I'm pretty sure he knew where we were at, and he just brought us on at that point.
Well, honestly, that's not that hard, man. If
Yeah.
you could have been friends with some random motor T Gunny in the Mew, and man, I'm telling you, man, the relationships in the Marine Corps can get you really far. So yeah, that's very understandable, man. That's easy because you're just a lance corporal's a lance corporal.
Absolutely. One, and then another thing is that Fowler remembered a time that me and him went out to Fuddruckers one time, and Ron was out with his family, and at Fuddruckers, and he said, "Hey Joey, come on over here and eat with us." And then me and Fowler went and ate with the family. Fowler's like, what? And then he said a week later we're in formation, and this guy's the freaking CEO of the Mew. Yeah, that was a good one.
Man, he's just, Ron Johnson is just a dude, man. He's probably just a regular old guy, just like everybody else. And
he's a Mustang.
I didn't know that.
If I'm not mistaken, he's a Mustang. Yeah, and I reached out to him recently via email. I shot him some of these episodes. He got back to me. He says he loves it. I'm gonna see if I can get an interview with him coming up soon too.
I've never had conversation with him one-on-one outside of like him passing through the beach. And, it was always good conversation, high spirits. But man, he owes me a goddamn coin. He owes me a coin. And and the trade-off is my mother-in-law used to make us those breakfast tacos. I'm sure you partake in the breakfast tacos, when we're out there at the beach. And, he said, remind me when we get on ship to give you a coin. Well, I was on the big deck. So I never saw him. You know, y'all were not you. You were on the big deck with me, but on the Whidbey Island or the Nashville, whatever ship they were on, I never saw him. I never got to see. I mean, I'm thinking Colonel Colonnades. I'm sorry. I'm thinking Colonel Colonnades. Man, I'm over here. My new commanders are mixed up. Colonel Colonnades was our MSSG CO, the cycle before you.
Okay.
Man, Colonel Colonnades too. He's like a 3-star right now. Man, they're all big Italians. They're all, you know, big 6'3" barrel chested Italians. they're all the same.
Very good. Well, look, we're an hour into it. Do you want to keep going? You want bathroom break? You need a glass of water, or something, or you want to keep rolling?
No, man, it's up to you, dude. I'm sorry. I kind of ramble sometimes, but I'm just trying to follow your lead, man.
Hey, look, I got a page and a half of notes, man. You know, that's you, man.
Okay.
This is good stuff. I mean, you know, the reason that, you know, we're having this conversation, like, we haven't even gotten there yet, but I'm looking forward to getting there, is that, you know, the story that you told last time. I mean, you know, you that first day coming to the 2-4 Mu with us there, and the way that you kind of introduce yourself to the platoon, you know what I mean? That's just like, you don't see that every day. You don't hear a story like that every day, right? So that's the type of guy I want to sit down and have a more in-depth interview with, you know, and I'm glad that we have an opportunity to do it, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely a thinker, man. I love I love it all, man. You know, how to talk about it, and then you can like reminisce on it, and you can you basically case study it, and then you kind of learn about individuals, because you're not the same guy, but you are the same guy from 15 years ago. You know, you haven't changed, but you have.
Right.
And I don't plan none of this stuff out, man. I shoot from the hip. You know, whatever the feeling is in the situation, you just kind of go with it. And in that moment in my life, I was very confident in my physical prowess, and I wasn't trying to like belittle anybody, but at the same time, I wanted just to be one of the guys, and I could never fit in. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fit in with you guys because I wasn't your peer. You know, so I mean, even years after, man, I still hang out with Chavez. Was one of the main dudes that I probably hung out with after we got back from deployment. Chavez was older, you know, so was Estrada. Oh, damn, Estrada. So Chavez and Estrada were two dudes that I continually hung out with after the deployment. I think because we had similar interests. Me and Chavez like to get drunk together, and me and Estrada went fishing together. You know, so that was it. And it's way easier to be successful when everybody is cohesive. And in order to be cohesive, you have to be part of that group in some way, shape, or form. And that's all I wanted to do, was be part of that group, because it wasn't the last cycle. It was a whole new atmosphere, a whole new group of dudes. Smith and Fleisner were the only rollovers from the cycle before, you know? So, I mean, they knew who I was, but I wasn't in charge of them. So I had to reestablish myself and how I wanted to be as a leader. I don't think I did that good of a job, because I think there needed to be a balance between how loose I was and then being a little bit harder in some other areas. But I didn't pick that up until a little bit later, you know? So.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And I'm glad you brought up Smith and Fleisner being the only rollovers. Can you take us through a day-to-day life on the 24th Mu prior to us? And, you know, when you guys were in Iraq, can you paint the picture? Can you paint the scene for us?
Yeah. This is going to take a second, but I'm gonna have to start from the beginning. So let's say we go to Kuwait. Remember when we went to Kuwait, we hit a couple ranges and then we just went back on ship and went home, right? So, okay, we got the same thing. We went to Kuwait. We did some ranges, but we knew we were going into Iraq, and everything was still loose and fun and games, and nothing was too like stressful. We knew we were going into Iraq, but nobody was like wound up so tight like we're gonna get fucked up or hurt or injured. So instead of getting back on ship, we convoyed up into Iraq. And everybody's like, okay, we're just sitting there chilling. Like, you're supposed to be awake on the convoy. And then you hit up, it's called North Star. And North Star is like the last little stop that you have before you go into Iraq. Well, we are convoy security. So we made center line seating. This was not, industrial fabricated center line seating. This was, we put some 2x4s and plywood together with some sandbags and made benches in the back of a 7-ton so we can have outboard facing weapons instead of sitting on the benches and then facing each other. You know what I'm saying? So we took those benches out, we made our benches, and we were all facing outboard, and there was 10 or 12 of us in the back with our gear, whatever, and we were going up into Iraq. I remember the feeling inside of me was like, bro, as soon as we cross into Iraq, we're gonna be getting shot at. So I'm ready. I'm like, I'm trigger happy as fuck. Like, I'm thinking like, hey man, we're about to get shot at. This is going down right now, So I was awake. And so other people might have thought differently, because there was dudes falling asleep or whatever. I'm like, how can you fall asleep? We're about to get shot at, And this is like northern Kuwait, southern Iraq. Nothing is happening at that area at that time. So we go however many miles up and we get to our Fob Khal Su. Fob Khal Su was, I remember it was checkpoint 16. You take, Tampa up to checkpoint 16, boom, you hit Fob Khal Su. It's on the cross section of Christie and MSR Tampa. You hit Tampa to Michigan, you hit the Spaghetti Bowl, you take a left, you hit Fallujah. Maybe you stay on Tampa, Baghdad, Biop's right there. Oh, we did go to Biop for a little bit. Went to Biop and did some, we received all the packs that were flying in from Kuwait, because some people convoyed up, some people flew in. Dudes that flew in, we got their gear, we got the people, LS type stuff. We got them to where they needed to go. At the end of it, we ended up in Khal Su. In Khal Su, we spent 8 or 9 months there, and that was our day-to-day. I had aspirations of lat moving into EOD. So I was talking to the EOD guys, and I was planning on lat moving because I thought that was a cool gig. So me and a couple other guys, we made up the EOD security team. So I was part of the 12-man EOD security team. The EOD security team was 5 or 6. I think half of us were permanent. It was like a couple maintenance dudes, a couple LS guys. So me, Steiner, Morris, and Humphrey, us 4 LS guys, we were permanent. And then you had a couple Motor T drivers that were driving vehicles, but I had a Humvee license. So I at the end of it, I ended up being a driver. But anyways, we had our EOD security team. Our mission was to go examine post-blast or weapon caches that might have been found, or IEDs that were found, anything in our AO. If it was explosive related, EOD was going to go out there. We're going to detonate the IED, the VBID. We're going to, if the recon found a bunch of weapons or explosive, we're going to blow that on site. Even if it was a post-blast IED that already went off, we had to go out. So we were going out anywhere to 3 to 7 times a day outside the wire. And it was, outside the wire was the Wild Wild West. There was IEDs and there was small arms and all of that. So my day-to-day might not have been the same as Smith and Fleisner's. Smith and Fleisner were just part of the Motor T crew. So the LS guys that were with Motor T, they were convoy security. They were gunners, 50 cal gunners. They were Mark 19 gunners, and they were convoying en routine, to Fallujah, to Biop, and any random Iskandarias where the grunts were. So they were hitting all these places on a day-to-day convoys, just go, day-to-day. Another story would be to explain the difference in convoy operations in 2004 to convoy operations in 2012 when I went to Afghanistan. It is night and day the way that they conduct a convoy operation. Another story for another time. So we were a small fob, and we received a lot of mortars and rockets. And so it was probably we got there June or July. We got there June or July. Before the end of the month, before the end of July, we were probably receiving mortars. It must have only been about a week, maybe 2 weeks at most after getting there. I was in my first mortar attack. You know what HESCO is? HESCO is Yeah, so we were setting up HESCO because we were building our fob. And so working party up, right, we're still like within the first couple of weeks of getting there. Let me go back. Our living situation, the way that we lived was a all 75 motor, a TS deck, motor T and LS and HE all together in the same tent. No showers. We didn't have no showers. We didn't have no chow hall. All we had was some porta johns to go to the restroom in. But we all lived in the same tent, 70 something people. And it's like a 40-man tent, but there's 70 of us in there. So I'm telling you, we are squished as tight as can be on cots. And we were building our LSA, which is our living area, which was going to, at the end, to have bunk beds. And at the end of the deployment, we'll have showers. And at the end, we'd have some of these commodities that are, for hygiene purposes, even a chow hall. We didn't have a chow hall. We were building the chow hall. So we were living no showers, no chow hall, and we were all on top of each other tight. And it wasn't that bad. It stunk. You had dirty clothes, but guess what? Everybody stunk and everybody had dirty clothes. So it wasn't no big deal. It is what it is. Fuck, man, it's that I can't even think of a bad experience in being in that besides explaining it to somebody that's never had to do it. If you never had to sleep cot to cot, like, bro, there's no room, man. It's cot to cot. You can just get off the foot of your rack and no gym, no nothing, man. So anyways, we're doing working parties to set up all this HESCO. And you take a chow break, you go eat your MRE, and then you just go back to work and you're just HESCOing up, spinning the goddamn, you're doing this right here. Then you got your Gerber to fix it or whatever. And you hear boom. It was that we were getting mortared. So you hear boom, and then you hear boom. And on the second boom, I got outside the tent. We were eating lunch. I walked outside the tent and I looked up and I could see in the distance, boom. And then you could see like the, dust particles and the black smoke coming up from the mortar hitting. And this is probably like 60 or 70 yards away. And I'm stunned because I'm like, this is the coolest shit I've ever been a part of. This is like war, and no shit. There was not 1 ounce of fear in me at all because I was stupid because I didn't know. And so I'm looking across the airfield because they were mortaring the airfield, and we had some like Hueys over there. Some bigger helicopters could land there, but it was really just the Hueys and medevac guys that were in and out there. So I'm watching these mortars land, boom, 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 and somebody yells, "Get to the bunker!" And I'm like, "Oh shit, I probably should get to the bunker," Now, see, when you get mortared in that time, they would hit you with like a volley of mortars, and so basically they're just launching a whole bunch real fast, and then the guys shooting them, they would just take off. So it would be 4, 5, 6 mortars, boom, 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 boom. They would just be in a row. If they're not on target hitting you, man, they're not going to hit you. They're just boom, boom, boom. Yeah, they hit some people. Some people died, but don't be in their volley, their line of their volley. So the first couple of weeks, it was like, run, get to the bunkers. But guess what? As we were getting mortared, people were running to the bunkers and they were getting hit with shrapnel because they were running to the bunkers. So the EOD guys were like, why the fuck are y'all running to the bunkers? You're supposed to just get down. So, as soon as you hear a boom or incoming, just hit the ground and the survival rate drastically increases because, shrapnel goes like this, right? So if you're running, that's a potential for shrapnel to hit you. So like I said, after the first week or two, mortars were like a daily occurrence. There's some stats out there that I bet Colonel Johnson has, and I don't mean no disrespect because I think he ended up a 3-star or 4-star. What didn't he? I don't know. He ended up pretty high up there.
He's brigadier general, I believe.
Oh, so Colonel Colonnades is a 3-star general then. Colonel Colonnades, he was our logistics officer. He probably made 3-star. So old Ron John, I bet he has the stats on it. And we were getting mortared or rocketed almost every goddamn day. And, the mortars hit or the rockets hit. If you're sleeping, you just roll over your cot, just fall on the ground. And then and you'll hear like them sergeant majors. Like I remember Sergeant Major Coaxum. He was our MSSG sergeant major, and he would be yelling at people like, "Get to the bunkers, Marines!" And Marines would be laying on the ground while under a mortar attack, and you got these guys yelling like, "Run!" And Master Sergeant Higgins was the EOD. He was in charge of us, the EOD Master Sergeant, and he was like, "Shut the fuck up! Like, stop telling people to run while we're getting mortared. Like, you're causing casualties by telling people to run while we're under a mortar or rocket attack. It's only going to cause more injuries. Like, just get on the ground when they stop exploding, all clear. Okay, then you can send your guys to the bunker. But when they're done exploding, there's no more. Not until the next attack the next day or whatever." So I was lucky to learn some of this stuff from the EOD guys because they had a lot of common sense. And common sense isn't always prevalent in these units. So we had sergeant majors and master sergeants and higher enlisted guys that were worried more about shaving your face or clean camis than the safety and protection of the Marines. Like you can't come into this chow hall if you don't have a clean shaven face. Well, we're out on runs all day, all night, 24/7. We're going out in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day. And some of our guys will be dirty. We've got hit with IEDs, and one time we got hit with IEDs, and guys had a secondary IED, and dudes had to go through the canal, and they were all dirty, and then try to go into the chow hall and get kicked out of the chow hall because they were dirty. We had just got into a very hostile situation because we got hit with a secondary IED, and guys were dirty and muddy from the canal, and there's no showers. Like, what you're supposed to like rinse off with your bottles of water and shit. It didn't make a lot of sense. Common sense was the most important thing in those situations because number one is the safety of individuals, making sure that they're protected. And then everything else is just second tier. Shaving your face or being clean. Like, is that really that important? Come on. Damn it. So day to day, man, MREs for breakfast, MREs for dinner, and they would serve us hot rats at lunch. So 2 MREs a day. And then they'd have like this little tent set up where you can get some hot rats at lunchtime. Later on in the deployment, halfway through or maybe towards the end, we got chow hall. Yeah, halfway through, we had chow hall. Chow hall was getting mortared, put sandbags on top of the chow hall. I'm talking about chow hall, direct hit. We had a computer center, mortar, direct hit, mass casualty. Mass casualty in the chow hall, mass casualty in the computer center. Mortar landed right outside the bunker, mass casualty at the bunker. I mean, these things were just like you didn't know when it was going to happen, but if it could happen, it would. And mortars were landing everywhere. They were hitting trucks in the motor pool. They were hitting the living areas, the tent areas, they were hitting everywhere. Mortars were landing everywhere. We were setting up the HESCO when we moved out of that tent, we had our own little spot for the EOD security team. And we were setting up our HESCOs. The night that we were setting up our HESCOs, they didn't have sand in them yet. It was just the HESCO. So we got rocketed. Boom, you hear a rocket. Me and Aaron Tam, we jump on the ground. We're right outside our tent. We hit the ground, and a rocket lands 10 feet from us. Boom, right on the other side of the HESCOs. And we're just laying on the ground. It hurt your ears or whatever. Didn't get hit with no shrapnel or nothing. You can see the HESCO, the holes, the HESCO looked like damn Swiss cheese, like the light was coming through the HESCO. And you could see where the shrapnel had ripped through it, but we were laying down, so no shrapnel. All right, dust yourself off and carry on. And that's what it was, man. There was you don't get to revisit those situations in the moment because you got something else to do. Hey, you got to get ready for the next day or the next mission. And so you don't get to sit there and let all that, the dangers or the risk soak in. You can't, man. You got something to do. You got to keep moving. So every day, man, this is just in the camp. We haven't even talked about outside the camp yet. In the camp, it was mortars and rockets. Man, I've been to Afghanistan. I've been to Leatherneck, and I've been to, I was in Kandahar. I was at all these different bases, and these bases are huge bases. And so, like, a mortar would land. You do not even hear the explosion of the mortar because the camp is so big. This ain't Kalsu, man. Kalsu was so small. If a mortar landed, that shrapnel can essentially almost reach across the whole camp. because it was such a small area. So when when I was in Leatherneck and Kandahar, and we would be getting mortared attack or rocket attack, bro, that was one of the least scariest situations I've ever been in my life. But guys that haven't experienced anything worse, they wouldn't know, man. So Chavez and Grignon and them were on the next cycle, and they were getting mortared. And I really haven't talked to them about it, but I wonder how big their camp was, if they were at Leatherneck, or if they were, wherever they were in Afghanistan. On those big bases, man, there's little to no threat of mortars and rockets, man. Nobody's getting hurt from those things. More likely to get hurt from a V-bid trying to, come into the gate, or if you go outside the wire and get hit with the IED, because that's where the danger was. Sorry, man, I'm just rambling, but the day-to-day over there in Kalsu on the cycle before us, it definitely changed your outlook on life, because there was a lot of risk involved. And once you experience that, man, everything else is just cupcakes and amusement parks, so our deployment was easy, man, easy compared to that.
Yeah, sounds like it. Appreciate you sharing all that, Mike. I mean, that's a lot to unpack. Let's see if I can kind of feed some of that back to you. Kalsu was the base that you were at for that most of that deployment.
Yeah, that's the only base we had. That was our FOB. So that's where the MSSG 24 established themselves in order to support, the BLT and the ACE that was, at some other locations.
Gotcha. And essentially, this base was so small that a rocket or a mortar, the shrapnel from that could potentially reach the entire base. I mean, that's how small this place was.
I was being a little, I'd over-exaggerated that a little bit,
yeah.
But I mean,
might as well have been that small compared to the bigger bases of Kandahar and Leatherneck.
Yeah, not by much, man. I mean, so you could say like Fallujah, Fallujah or Bayap. Bayap was huge, man. It was like this little city in Baghdad. Or, Fallujah was huge. Anaconda, some of these other bases, they were huge, man. But if you're a little FOB, FOBs ain't big. It's like a motor pool, a command center, a chow hall, and a living area. Like, I mean, 150, 200 yards across, at most.
Gotcha. And you became part of the EOD security team.
Yeah.
Because they needed more guys for their team, essentially.
Well, the first week or two, EOD was pulling MPs to escort them to go on these calls. But that's not the MP's mission. And so the MPs were getting tasked out daily, like multiple times a day. So, and this is me just putting my assumptions on it. But I just assume MPs were like, this ain't our job, man. We can't just do this every day. And so the Master Sergeant, the EOD guys were probably like, well, give us a team. And so then they established a team, and we created a EOD security team. And we were all proficient in the weapon systems, and, tactics are pretty easy. Everybody had to learn TTPs for convoys and stuff like that. So we all knew how to conduct ourselves out there.
Gotcha. And y'all were, so you were part of that team, but you were still shacked up with the TS Det.
Yeah, right around that same time, they gave us a couple tents for just the team. So we separated ourselves from the TS Det, and we became basically just the EOD Det,
Yeah. You described incidences where some enlisted higher-ups were telling the junior Marines to run to a bunker, which was actually putting them directly in harm's way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bro, we didn't know, man. Even those guys that were telling, they just didn't know because nobody had the experience. Higher, lower, it doesn't matter, man. We're just all people, and if you don't have the experience, you don't have it.
Yeah. But it sounds like some of them EOD guys, like you said, common sense was kind of their thing, and they it sounds like they were educating everybody on the best practices.
That's it. Hit the nail on the head, man. Best practices for mortar and rocket attacks were, hit the ground. Just lay there.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you describe daily attacks that you never really had a chance to kind of evaluate because you had to get ready for the next day or the next mission or finish that mission. And then you had to deal with other circumstances like coming back from a mission. You can't even get inside the chow hall.
Yeah.
Because you look dirty.
That wasn't just us, man. That was like the Motor T guys coming off convoys, and they're coming through dusty, wet, nasty, whatever areas, and they've been, man, these Motor T guys would go on a convoy, get back, go get an hour or two of sleep, load up, and go out again. And if they had the opportunity to go in the chow hall, they would. But you got guys that sit behind the computer all day, telling these guys that they can't come eat chow. Motherfucker, you sit behind the computer all day. Like, these guys are out, putting themselves in serious danger, and they have to go take a shower before they can come into the chow hall,
Wow. I mean, and like you said, we haven't even really gotten into the things that happen outside of the base yet. We were just talking about home life, essentially, for those 9 months. Yeah.
And man, and listen, so we had the command element. So the Muse broken down. You got the ACE, the BLT, the us, and the command element. The command element shared our camp with us too, and so they got a bunch of guys that really just they're not office workers because recons with the command element and some pretty oops, sorry about that.
No,
a call came in, I was just declining it.
no.
Yeah, so there was some dog handlers that were there. We had a little detention center that was there. Everybody had a job to do. There was no slouches there, but not everybody's job was the same, man. Them guys that weren't leaving the wire every day, they didn't have the same risk, but they had plenty of risk because there was mortars that were landing fucking almost every day. And so that was their life that they had to live versus the guys that were out on convoys worrying about IEDs and stuff.
Mike, we covered so much in this hour and a half. I mean, we went from basically civilian to, hey, I'm getting mortared and rocketed every day. I'm on an EOD security team and I'm staying alive out here. That's kind of. I think that's a good. I think this would be a good place to kind of put the bookmark in. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay. And listen, man, you just said that, and I never really thought about it, but yeah, man, I went from going bowling one night to, getting rocketed and mortared, and I don't think nothing of it, but I definitely think it plays into who I am. So before you met me, this is kind of how I got to where I am.
Yeah, I want to thank you for providing that snapshot, and look forward to seeing you this week, and definitely catching up further with you and everybody else, and getting everybody else's input on. I think this is going to be good because we'll be able to cover our deployment all together with everybody on the next episode.
Yeah, man,
and finish up with your experiences outside the wire during that Iraq deployment before us.
Oh yeah, man. I know Estrada went out on the Mew on the 13th Mew out of Cali, so he probably got some pretty cool stories too because he went on a California Mew after us.
Oh yeah. Well, hey.
All right, man. I'll hit you up. I'll give you a call or something, but we'll. I'm hitting the road tomorrow morning, man. I'll see you lunchtime Thursday.
Sounds great. We'll be in touch. Thanks, Mike.